will do.
I got it. Okay, well, I'd like to call to order the September 2022 Airport Commission. And Brian, if you could do a roll call, please.
Yes. Halleck.
Here.
Lorman.
Here.
Hanero.
Here.
Shaw.
Here.
Munson.
Here.
Okay. Any other commission or committee members? Sorry, commission members on the call? Okay, hearing none, we have quorum.
All right, thank you so much, Brian. All right, the first.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Can I interrupt just for a second? I realized after last month's meeting that we didn't give any welcome to our new member, Brian Shaw, who is a constituent of mine. So I wanted to just take a few minutes to say hi to Brian and welcome him. And if with your indulgence, ask if he'd like to introduce himself.
Go ahead, sure, absolutely.
Sure. Hi. Thank you. Thanks for the welcome. Hey, I'm Brian Shaw, and I live in Middleton Hills. I've got 4 kids, and I'm here in the community and excited to be on the commission.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you, Lisa, for calling out that that we omitted that. Next item is the proof of posting and notice. Brian?
Yes, the meeting was properly posted.
Okay, thank you very much. Next item is the approval of the minutes.
I'll move approval with some corrections.
Okay, I'm going to trying to get the packet up on my screen here, Lisa. Okay, why don't you go ahead and tell us where you think there should be some adjustment.
Okay, sure. On page 2,
yes,
where item number 1, the last paragraph, it said Hanairo asked about the terms of the hangar land leases. I just wanted to say, instead of why they were not matched with the increases in the consumer price index, I think it should reflect that I noted that the CPI went up 35% since 2005, and that there were no increases in 2010 or 2015.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
And does anybody else have issue with that?
Okay, then that's the change. That's the. I would move approval of the minutes with that correction. I don't know if anyone seconded that.
Okay, anybody care to second the minutes?
I can second that.
Okay, first from Lisa and then from Brian. I'll call to any discussion? If not, let's call the vote. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, same sign. The acceptance of the minutes carry. Okay. All right, let's go to the next item here. I'm a little slow, guys. I'm on some new drugs that make me a little breathy and a little slower. So, all right. So the next thing is the chair report. The only comment I have to make with regard to the chair report, and actually Mark Opitz brought to my attention that, I made a comment that the 2 events were bigger than the Good Neighbor Fest. And I actually can't make that statement because I don't think anybody measures either one of them. But I think we could say that if in worst case, it approaches that of the Good Neighbor Fest. So I just want to correct what I said to be probably more accurate, since we have no empirical evidence one way or the other. With that, I'd like to move on to the airport manager's report. Rich?
Very good, John. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Neighbor relations from July 30 to August 24th. 5 individuals made 27 noise or overflight reports. 1 individual made 22 reports. Another 2, the rest, 3 of them, single reports. 2 jet arrivals or departures were reported. 1 crop duster, not really even close to where we are, was reported. And then the others were seemed to be about flight training aircraft. All reports which requested contact were addressed by phone or email by myself. No aircraft accidents or incidents on the field. Maintenance. Again, we have the knocked boxes. We haven't had a chance to install them, and we're in the process of trying to collect some keys for all the hangars. We're going to have to send out an email and a plea for everyone to allow the fire department to have access to their hangar just in case. So I would think that an enlightened self-interest would allow that to occur. Most recently last week, they did a final check on the runway end identifier lights, or look like white strobe lights, only now they're LEDs, quite bright, much better than the old ones. And all the runway and taxiway lights have been installed and are functional, as well as the PAPIs, the precision approach indicator. So we're all up and running, and everything seems to be fine with it. Other news, again, we're still in our 80th anniversary of operations at Maury Middleton. And Capitol Cruise, their August 13th event, was well attended and well administered. No issues along those lines, although someone did back over a taxi light. So that has been replaced. Future events, I neglected to mention that August 24th, a Girls in Aviation event will be hosted by Maury Airplane Company, getting young women out talking with, and actually whole families out, with the emphasis of trying to let people know that there is a career in aviation if they wish to pursue it, especially the underserved population of female out there. August 27th, the Wings to Fly special event, it's September 24th, not August 24th. But the August 27th Wings to Fly special event went off very nicely. I wrote up this report a while back. So anyway, it was well attended with, again, underserved population. I flew one of the youngsters up and there were 7 kids that came in and a few others that rode along on top of it. Very well received.
You know, I'm going to go back to the knock boxes. I have never received a request for a key. So is there going to be a request made?
Yeah, we're going to have to set that up on email, John. My apologies. I know we wanted to get things mounted before we actually started accumulating keys for them, and that hasn't occurred yet.
Okay.
Yeah, it will happen.
Great. Does anybody have any questions of Rich?
I have a quick question. Rich, the PAPIs, is that conventional technology, or were those replaced with LEDs?
We are all running LEDs on this, Kevin, and yeah, they are. They work very well.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It'll be interesting to see what the electrical builds now are. If we're going to see a reduction, I would imagine we would.
Well, I would like to think that we will, obviously. Mm-hmm. And that's great. Okay.
I had a comment and a question. The comment is just that I think the date on the report, Rich, should have said September 1. Just
you are correct.
Okay. And then my question was just going to be, can you explain what it means to say that the reports under neighbor relations, that they were addressed? Did you talk to the pilots? Did you talk to the person who filed the report? Just for my edification.
Okay. I try to talk with and or leave a message from to and or email every report that wants a callback. And sometimes I leave messages and don't get a reply. Other times I speak with someone. When it's possible to identify the pilot, I speak with the pilot as well. If the pilot's following noise abatement procedures or an instrument approach procedure, I don't speak with the pilot.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions of Rich?
I do want to add two things, John, and I know this isn't on there, but spoke with the reporter from 27, and then I spoke with a reporter from WORT recently. I wasn't able to listen to the WORT report. I'm going to try to get into the archives and see what was there, but seemed like a very, just do what we can and speak to what's going on right now. There's some exciting options, or looks like the FAA is finally moving on the 100 ULs, which is very exciting.
Yes, we'll talk about it when we get down to the projects.
Yes, sir.
It looks to me like they have approved the GAMI 100 UL for all aircraft engines and all airframes. So now we have to deal with supply chain.
Yes.
So, that'll be the next issue. Okay, if there's no
I'm
other
sorry, John, what was that last thing you said? Now we have to deal with what?
supply chain,
Supply chain, thanks.
you have to make it, right? And in quantity. So all the big oil companies are gonna now have to figure out that stuff they're making is obsolete, and they're all gonna have to get on the new bandwagon. And I'm sure it takes a while for everything to get tuned over, if you will. Okay,
And I can add one item to Rich's. I think September 17th, we'll also have a Young Eagles going on.
That's correct. I apologize. Missed that.
okay. Moving on, let's talk about the cash sheet and talk about the budgets. Lisa asked last week about the 109,924 versus the 108,376. The correct number is the 109,924. Obviously, one of the leases got adjusted. And so going forward, the number is 109,924. Everything is pretty much as anticipated. As we go through, we're low on a lot of the items. Airport grounds maintenance is down quite a bit over what's budgeted. And the outside services, which is legal, is down quite a bit. So all in all, with the extra help we have from the government in terms of some of the grants, we're now 82,000 to the good, which is which will go down, but it signifies that we're pretty much a break even in July if you take away the $82,000. Okay. Moving up, this is the budget for 2023. We had a budget hearing this morning, and this is the numbers that we came up with. So we have the actual hangars as what it is budgeted.
Don, excuse me a second. Brian, are you getting this up on the screen so everybody can see the agenda as we go through it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at I have it on mine here.
Yeah, Brian's got it up now. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So this is the last piece that I talked about, the 109, the 82,000 that relates to here, which puts us about at a break even. Our costs are way down. This was our legal budget. This is our maintenance budget. So we're well within where we thought we would be. And that's actually pushing the number up to be a profit, if you would. For now, we will lose money the rest of the year, incrementally. Okay? Any questions? Can we move up to the next sheet? Brian, the budget? That's it right there. Well, back. So this is the budget we had today. So we corrected the hangar land leases for actual. The MADC land lease is based on contract. Fuel flowage was increased because we're now coming out of COVID. We're getting back to normal. Crops land rent is based on contract. Solar land rent is based on contract. There are no known grants or repayments or any government program, but who knows, next year there could be another CARES 3 or 4. Going down below, the $2,000 that we had in 2023 or 2022, excuse me, was actually the knock boxes, which are a one-time. So we're actually not budgeting anything for that. Telephone, advertising, utilities, insurance, all of that comes straight out of from Bill Burns's office. Airport grounds maintenance, we're going to leave it the same. Under that is all parts for all the equipment, third-party contracts, and rentals. Prairie is 2,500, and we're going to, I believe, remove that. There's no cost item that we can find within the city of Middleton to apply against that. So that is to be removed. Landing lights, we're going to leave at 2,000, although we believe it to be 0. The airport manager's contract, we're bringing it back down. And we're bringing it back down because last year there was a lot of extra clearing. So we made a mid-year adjustment. And so now we're getting back in line. And this is provided by Rich. We left legal at 22, even though we only used 2 this year, because we don't know where legal is going to go. The entitlement match is for our bills match and also for our AIP match. The other operating expenses are just standard. And then we add a 10,000 contingency fee. So we're showing actually a loss of 34,000. I actually think that after they remove the supplies and materials at 2,000, remove the prairie maintenance at 2,500. We look at what the actual legal and airport grounds maintenance, and we don't have any lights to maintain, and we don't need the contingency that we actually could push this into the black for the year. Questions?
Is I'm just sort of thinking back from previous year when we did so much work in terms of brush clearing and all the work done around the water areas and whatnot. Just looking ahead, how we're going to handle this, because I think it'll every 5 years or so, it's going to creep back up, or are we just going to now factor this in moving forward, that there's always going to be some kind of aggressive program to keep down what's been cut down?
Well, I think, and Rich, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but our thinking is that if we have a regular burn program, that it will keep most of it down. And then if we need something additional, we would rent it under the airport grounds maintenance. So earlier in this year, we rented a cat excavator with a grinding head, a forestry head on the end of it. And we cleared quite a bit
Yeah,
in a matter of 4 or 5 days. So there are tools available. So between the renting of tools under airport grounds maintenance and also regular burnings, hopefully I don't want to play catch up again. I want to keep up, not catch up.
yeah, and that's why I would just that line item prairie maintenance. I'm not making a case to keep it. I guess what I'm just saying is that as long as it's fine that everything is under grounds and maintenance because that's what it should be and that's what it is.
Yeah.
As long
no one knows what prairie maintenance is.
Maybe it's that little area out in front that is a prairie as you walk in the front door. I don't know. Maybe that's what it cost initially to do something.
The city has no cost items applied against it.
Yeah.
But we have no idea what it is.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
No, but if I may, well, I don't have a question, but if I may address, originally we had the berms were natural planting, and we were supposed to burn those on an annual basis or a semi-annual basis, and that was what the prairie maintenance was envisioned as. And as for catch-up, no, we won't want to do that. I think on an annual basis, we're going to be renting that excavator with the forestry head and cleaning up the one area that the burn went beautifully, partially because, or majorly because, all of the woody growth on that one patch that we burned had been ground down. It was dry and it burned very beautifully, and it I think actually took out some of the root structure. So that's what we're hoping to do in the future.
As a check to the budget, we rented the equipment for $5,000 and the burns are like 500. So there's more than enough room in here. Okay.
Lisa, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. That's fine. You beat me to it. Because I was going to mention the prairie maintenance too. You know, I have a small prairie in my backyard and it's so close to the house we don't burn it. But I do think there should be maintenance done to the prairie. And I'm wondering, one, does the airport grounds maintenance have enough in it to cover that? Because if so, I agree with Dave, it should all be rolled up into grounds maintenance because that's what it is. I'm also wondering if it's possible the city hasn't been charging the cost of whatever is being done, if they've been absorbing that in Parks and Rec or Public Works. Brian, do you know the answer to that?
I do not know that. I don't know that we've charged that yet.
Okay. So if the $35,000 will be enough to cover everything that needs to be done, including whatever maintenance to prairie areas, I'm fine with that. I was wondering about the fuel flowage fee and when the last time that was increased. I saw in a WSDOT report that the average is 10 cents. Well, actually the average was 17 cents per gallon, but that included some outliers. So it looks like 10 cents per gallon is commonly charged. And I'm thinking, since we're
and what is that based on, Lisa?
This is let me pull up the report. It is, oh no, where did my report go? Oh, I sent it to myself. Hold on.
Because that's a lot different than what I asked the local airports.
What did the local airports say?
The local airports are in line with what we're charging.
Okay, so this
is
one.
probably this
Go
is
ahead,
Mark. It's probably the annual rates and charges survey is probably what you're referring to, right, Lisa?
Thank you. Yes, it is from 2021. Yeah. And that's I just feel like if we're supposed to be trying to make sure the airport is as self-sufficient as possible, I know it's only $2,200 more, but I figure why not? When was the last time the fuel flowage fee was increased?
Last year.
Really?
Yeah.
And well, given inflation, I don't see it being cost prohibitive for anyone to pay 2 cents more per gallon. I could be wrong, but it seems to me everybody's paying a lot more than that in increases in everything. Everything.
John,
Good, Mark.
if I may, John, I'm not sure that rate the rate is 8 cents, right?
Yes.
The rate is 8
Rich would
cents,
know.
and I'm suggesting
I don't think
increasing
that
it
was
to
last
10.
year. I don't think that was last year. I think it was longer ago than that, but I could be wrong. Rich would know.
It could have been the year before. Hey, time flies when you're having fun.
Sure does. Yeah, I'm not sure, Mark, if it was last year or the year before, and I know there's some contractual, we can raise it, I believe, well, anyway, have to look at the contract to see what we can do, but I believe over the next 5 years, we can raise it, I think, a penny a year or something along those lines.
I thought that when we did this last time, we developed a schedule.
Yep, we did. And I'm not sure if we're holding to it, but I think we are because I just signed the new contract and that's when the schedule was set up.
So what document is the schedule in?
That should be in the my operating agreement and or my the contract with Maury Airplane Company.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
can that be shared with the commission members, and can we I don't know, John, if we have to take any action on this 2023 proposed budget right now, but I would like to explore the possibility of increasing that to 10 cents or sticking with the schedule.
Yeah, the document is online. I think it's in the airport page, so you can take a look there. I think we need to realize before we entertain making any change, what our obligation is to make sure we have a right to make a change.
Right, but I believe our obligation is to maintain a fee and rental structure that makes the airport as self-sustaining as possible.
I understand, but we're bound by a contract.
Right.
So we can only operate within the bounds of our agreements. So let's make sure we know what those bounds are, and then we can explore our options beyond that.
Sounds good.
So I don't know, Mark, if you know where it's at and can point to a section.
I can't right now, John. I don't have access to it. Sorry.
Okay. So
we'll get a copy of it and send it out to the commission members.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Any other comments or questions? So I think we should approve the budget. I'd like to make a motion to approve the budget subject to our obligations to the fuel flowage fee. So here's,
John, did you make the motion on John?
yes,
All right, I'll second that. This is Luke.
okay. Any comments associated with that? If not, I'd like to bring to
Just one thing. We're assuming the $2,500 for prairie maintenance and the $2,000 for landing lights maintenance come out.
yes,
Okay.
yes. We went through that today with Bill, and this document didn't get changed. Okay. Okay, hearing nothing. All in favor of approving the budget, say aye.
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 Opposed, same side. Okay, budget is approved. Okay. Moving on then to We did budget committee formal submission, we did that. So the airport hangar interest survey results. So who wants to lead that? Well,
I can make a few comments, John.
Okay.
This is Mark. So back in July, the Airport Commission signed off on the survey questions. We adapted them to a SurveyMonkey format and weren't able to immediately reach out to everybody who was on our hangar waiting list because the list was so long, the list that was maintained by the airport. It took us a few weeks to reach out to everybody to let them know about the airport, about the hangar survey. So that's why you didn't get this presented in August. But since then, we've closed the hangar survey, and these are the initial results from SurveyMonkey. I didn't do any formatting of the material. This is just what SurveyMonkey generates of the report. So we had over 70 people that indicated interest in hangar space, and another 30 or so that took the survey but said they aren't interested in hangar space, which I thought was interesting, but they still took the survey. But anyway, it still is much stronger demand than I would have guessed. So the results kind of, you might want to just scroll through the results here.
Sure.
What is most interesting to me, I think, was the types of hangars, the sizes that people indicated. Obviously, the issues before the Airport Commission is what do we do with this data, with this feedback? We obviously have very limited space on existing airport property, consistent with the airport master plan. We have very, very limited space for accommodating future hangars without expanding the footprint of the airport. That space is limited to the northeast side of the airport, and then there's a road there that Venture Avenue, I think it's called, by Lexus, that could be extended into the airport property and accommodate a few hangars. But after that, any additional hangars would have to be on an expanded footprint, which would involve purchase of land. So that's just my introduction, and I leave it to the commission to discuss the hangars, the survey results.
But I have a question here. On question 2, it says 22% of the people had there's no interest. I thought this was the hangar request list. Are these people that changed
Right.
their mind?
No, and that's what I was saying. I found it interesting that there were still about 30 people or 25 people, whatever the number is. I thought it was interesting that people took the hangar survey and indicated, the first question was, are you interested in more hangar space? And if you said no, then that's the blue response. So, the one, and that's fine. Then they didn't get asked the rest of the questions the way I set it up. So the ones that are in green are the ones who indicate interest in hangar space. And I'd say there's a couple of dozen of those green responses that are people who currently have a hangar at the airport. So they obviously are looking either for additional hangar space or to upgrade, I presume. I know there's circumstances involving both. Some people want additional, some people want to just, upgrade, and then their existing hangar space would become available. But there's about 50 that are, or a little over 50 that are new to the airport, want to be based at the airport.
Okay. And so there are 24 people who are already on the airport who would like to have a different space or an additional space. Some may rent theirs out,
Correct.
Or, I guess they would have a rent. And then the other, the rest of them.
Or they'd sell it.
Would be
or they'd sell their space.
Yeah. Okay. Brian, can we see the next question? Are you currently have hangar space? This is the part where they've already have hangar space.
Can I ask a question about that? This one confused me because the very first question, which was like the contact information for the respondent, had the option to add, or it asked, you currently have space. I forget, Brian, you could scroll up and show it, but it said 0% of the people responded. See where it says, do you have an aircraft based at C29? yes, no. I thought it was a little odd that 102 people filled this out, but nobody answered any of these other questions. So I was wondering about the structure of the survey. Were these not actually visible? It just seems like somebody would have answered, right?
Well, especially if you already have a hanger.
Yeah.
I thought these survey responses were very weird. I haven't been able to decipher those. Like
Yeah.
there's, yeah, I think.
And it's possible none of these with the 0% responses, it's possible those just were not showing. That to me, that's the only way to explain why it is that not a single person answered any of them. But I
Lisa,
don't know.
I can look into that in greater detail. I'm currently not in the office,
Sure.
and I was working heavily on Good Neighbor Fest and took time off for that last week, so I have not delved into survey responses, but I know, like, I downloaded a full version of the survey responses and it's hundreds of pages. So
Yeah.
maybe there's more information there that provides context to what you're asking.
Okay.
What I tried to do was take the questions, the survey format as authorized by the Airport Commission, and adapt it to SurveyMonkey. So I'm trying to zoom in right here on the, yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, that doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah. I also had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I also had a question about, I thought, well, I have 3 questions. One, who actually received the request to take the survey? Because I thought we were reaching out to people who are already on a waiting list, and that gets back to John's first question. Yeah. But I didn't realize we had 102 people on a waiting list. So I want some clarification about that. Also, I thought we were going to ask a question about fuel type, or I could be wrong. Maybe we ditched that question, but I thought we were going to ask people if they could use the unleaded fuel. And then the third thing was, I thought we were going to ask about willingness to pay to get on a waiting list. Like, we weren't asking them to do that now, but we wanted to find out. I think Kevin's the one who brought up the notion of asking people, maybe it wasn't Kevin, my apologies, but whoever brought up the idea of having some sort of nominal fee to stay on a waiting list.
I know we discussed it. I don't know if we ever committed to move it to a question.
I think that, John, if I may try and answer Lisa's good questions. So to answer your question, Rich and his staff sent out the survey to the list of people who are currently based at the airport. But then we also, using Rich's staff as well as administrative staff at the city, reached out to the people who are on the hangar waiting list that was maintained by Rich. Most of those people only had a phone number, so that's why it took us a while to connect with people by phone instead of by email. And that list was several pages long. So the 102 responses is, you know, I guess I'm not surprised by that. I'm just surprised by how many of those said, yes, we're interested in hangar space. I think that answers your question. So in other words, we just, you know, I don't think it was posted on, well, I don't know. Rich, you didn't post it on social media, right? You sent it to you emailed it to the hangar, all the hangar people who are based at the airport, your usual list. And then we contacted the hangar waiting list. I think that was the extent of our outreach.
That's my understanding, Mark. There may have been a couple of people that came in that were not from the area that inquired, and we gave them the address to be able to do the survey. But otherwise, yeah, we only really reached out to the current hangar owners or tenants, and then everyone on the list.
Okay.
I know I emailed
the idea was to get people.
Go ahead, Mark.
Did we lose Mark?
Oh, so no, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So then your next question was about
fuel type. Could they use
or fuel type? Well, David Lorman and John had previously surveyed current airport users about whether they would be able to take unleaded fuel. We did not add that to the survey. I guess I didn't understand that was question to be added to the survey. If that
Well, I think the point of that, Lisa, is that you cannot deny somebody access to a hangar based on fuel type. The FAA says that we have to be equitable to everybody, regardless of aircraft type. So,
Sure, but we asked about things like amenities they wanted in their hangars, like Wi-Fi and a landline. So it seems like
that's not
there's
controlled. That's not
but
controlled.
to me,
by the
there's
FAA.
no implication that if you answer this question wrong, you're not going to get on the list for a hangar. It's just, again, trying to identify the needs and capabilities of the people who responded to the survey. That's all.
Yeah, I think that's why we eliminated it, because it wasn't actionable. Anyway, I think that's the honest answer. Why don't we just scroll through these real quick while we have the thing up? We've looked at question 2, question 3, operating interested in operating a business. But that's encouraging. 17 people would be interested in operating a business out of it. So that speaks to commercial need. Amenities, basic stuff. Heat, electricities, internet, etc. Hangars are they contemplating? Share hangar, yes, no. Yes, well, that's encouraging too. Many people would allow us to own the hangars and then rent from us, and then once they're paid for, we get a windfall, or we can make a smart margin along the way. I think that's important. This to me just how they filled it out.
I'm back. I don't know if you asked me another question. I got lost the signal, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the value of these are. Yeah, that doesn't really give us much information. This is just repeating for a number of aircraft.
Mark, was one of the survey questions asking if they had a different type of aircraft? Because there's a couple of pages of questions where it's a yes, no on presumably a type of aircraft.
So I don't remember the type of aircraft, but the reason there's so many duplicate questions at the end is to allow people to register each aircraft they have.
Multiple.
I'm not sure I understand your question, Brian.
No, that's fine. That helps.
And this is just the sizes they want. I mean, we're a long way from engineering, but 90 by 90, that's a big size. Okay.
That's it for questions.
So what do we do with this, commissioners? So there's a lot of questions about it. It's good information. We're not going to be building a extension to for hangars anytime soon. Do we just?
Well, I was going to say, I'm sorry, Lisa, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Dave. I was just going to ask Mark, question 22 is additional comments. Is that something you can share with us at a later date? It's open-ended.
It's right there. I think.
Sure. I'm sorry.
I think that's question.
Okay.
That's 6.
Yeah. I'm happy to get you more results. I'm traveling north of Eau Claire right now, so my signal is getting weaker. I'm sorry about that. But yes, Lisa, okay. I'd be happy to provide you with more information.
Yeah, I was just curious to, because it says feel free to address any topics not covered above. I'm interested to see what people had to say.
So why don't we just set this aside? I don't know that there's anything we're gonna take action on right now. We could put it on the next agenda when Mark's around and ask some more questions. Any thoughts or comments from anybody?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think, I don't know, I mean, I've had some experience working with some of these survey tools, and I know that there's, call it the raw output of it is in a large, probably a table, spreadsheet format, whatever you want to call it. And that actually might be something, I mean, I'd be willing to take a look at. Yeah, sometimes that just makes a little bit more sense, because this keeps giving you all these kind of percentages, and the percentages really aren't gonna be useful, and if anything, they might be misleading. So
who says until he got a teacher's apartment, he couldn't.
Excuse me, somebody needs to mute their line.
It's a guest.
Yeah, thank you.
And also, Kevin Munson, you have your hand up.
Oh yes, so I think this survey was important. There's been a lot of rumors out there, and since 2007, even though I haven't been involved with the airport that long, people at work, especially that come in from out of town, when I was working for J&J and all that, they'd ask, how do I get, is there any space available at the airport? This and that. Can I get a hangar? Can I lease one? I tell them, I don't know. You talk to the airport manager, but at least we have an idea of what the demand is. It's the same thing with the demand for housing in the city and Middleton and the county and all of that. We have a much better idea now of what the demand is. It's significant. That doesn't mean that in any way, shape, or form we're going to be able to meet that demand, just like with the city of Middleton. We'll never be able to meet the overall demand, but we have an idea now. What is the demand, and what sort of hangar space are people looking for? And now we have a sign up list, and it's data that we could use if we ever do decide to build more hangars. And so I think it's very valuable. Now we know. So we just hold on to this until we make a decision one way or another, if we're going to add any hangars or how many or whatnot. In the meantime, keep the survey, keep the hangar list going, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree that we now have a document and a process for people to get on a list. And so it's not 3x5 cards or a spiral bound notebook. So the information will get better as we go forward. If there's nothing else on this topic.
I would just add, John, that I agree with what Kevin said. We now have a more robust list, and we have contact information, including emails, I think, in pretty much every case. And so we can follow up with people with the questions that Lisa asked about, would you be willing to put some skin in the game with a deposit or whatever? And we also know that not everyone's a recreational user. We've known that all along, despite what has been claimed. We have a wide variety of users of this airport. It is a truly general aviation airport, and there obviously is a strong demand to be located here. So we have data. We can follow up with people as the commission would like to provide that guidance.
Okay. All right. I think with that, maybe we should just move on to the next topic, which is MADC. Unless somebody has something specific they want to have done for the next airport commission meeting, I think we just accept this as data as is, and we revisit it at the time we need to. Okay, let's move on to the MADC item. So if you could roll that up a little bit, and I'll provide the background. This is an item that I was asked to put on the agenda by Michelle, who's not here today. This has been a long-standing issue for me. back when the airport was first reimagined, if you will, MADC was a non-functional entity. Doug Zwank, the mayor at the time, pulled a bunch of us together, and I was the vice chair of the MADC, and Mike Petta from Middleton Bank was the chair, and then we had some other folks on there. There was money available from in the MADC to be able to assist the city in the terminal building. In the original funding, the city did not contemplate either the fuel farm or the terminal building. The funding for the fuel farm came from Maury Airplane Company, and we now have within the agreement the right to reacquire it. And MADC supported the terminal building. The MADC's portfolio was exclusively loans on real estate, just pure real estate loans. And they were amortized. And at the end, the properties were owned by the person who paid the loan off. Except for a switch that was made that the MADC building was to be owned by MADC, which I believe they own no buildings. And they have a pretty sweet deal. They have a guaranteed 25 years. The airport FBO and the airport manager has an obligation. We make them rent that building, right? And there are no controls on the prices. So it's almost like the city created this contract to fund the MADC. Now, at the rate of payment, so this is a 25-year loan, or 25-year agreement, expires in, I think, 2028. And at the rate that Rich pays, by the way, which is triple net, he pays for the MADC land lease is actually paid by Rich, and Rich then pays money for the building. If you look at a normal amortized loan, that would have been paid off in 15 years. So the way I thought it was going to be written was going to be a zero down payment loan to the airport, and then we would rent it out, and then our payments that we received would pay the loan off. At 15 years, we would have a windfall of about $60,000 a year that would go into the airport fund. We made a motion a while back that the city should look at buying the building, and that way the funds could stay on the airport. MADC is carrying, this I find interesting, carrying the building on their books for $1 million. However, their lease expires in like 5 years, something like that, 6 years. And the amount of money they get per year off the lease is $60,000. That's $360,000. At the end of the lease, we have the right to not renew, which I hope we don't. So how could a building be worth $1 million when the revenue potential is no greater than $360,000? I mean, it's been stupid crazy the whole time. And I'd like to see MADC say, hey, we've made our money and we're going to grant the building for $100,000 or something to the airport. And then the airport can lease it to Rich. It would become an airport asset. which it is an essential asset, and the funds would stay on the airport and would help pay for the work we need to have done in the future for maintenance. So that was the motion made to the Common Council. Common Council's never acted on it. So I don't know what Michelle expected. That's the situation. We've made the motion. It's really up to the city at this time to decide what they want to do. But I think it's a travesty, to be frank about it. I think MADC has used this as a method to fund MADC and has really had no interest in helping the airport per se. It's a great opportunity. 25-year lease, guaranteed, and a guaranteed renter. I'll take that every day. Any questions? So airport, go ahead. Sorry.
I have a couple questions. One, I'm wondering, was this motion ever brought to council? I don't know if Luke can answer that question. It predates my time, of course.
My understanding is no.
Because that would definitely explain why there was no action if council wasn't made aware of the request.
What was the question, Lisa? I'm sorry.
The question is whether this motion from May of 2020 was ever brought to council, because John was saying council hasn't acted on the motion to enter into discussions with MADC regarding the potential purchase of the terminal building. And I was just asking, was anybody made aware of the request?
I heard the rest.
Yeah.
I'd have to check our notes in minutes. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
Off the top of my head. I know that there's been resistance, strong resistance by MADC to revisit this.
Sure.
Yeah.
I can understand why.
Well, and
if I'm not mistaken, they no longer have a city representative on MADC. Perhaps Luke would know. Robert Burke was at one point the liaison. Yeah. But I think they have removed the city connection from their board.
Yeah, so that doesn't necessarily, that might not bode ill, but it might not bode well either. I just am wondering, like, I think this could be presented to council for consideration, but if that were to take place, I would want to see, you know, a breakdown of the pros and cons and, you know, the dollar amounts. And I'm wondering if the airport enterprise, well, I'm guessing the airport enterprise fund might not, certainly if it's worth $1 million, the fund doesn't have enough money to pay for the terminal.
Lisa, how could it be worth $1 million?
Didn't you say that's what?
All they can do is collect their rent. And at the end of the lease, if we cancel, we take the building.
Oh, so they're saying the building itself is worth $1 million?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. But I do think, you know, finding out if there were to be any presentation to council, it should include an estimate of, you know, what the costs would be, what the benefits would be, you know, all that, not just the motion.
Well, don't you have to enter into some negotiations to be able to get those numbers?
Well, according to the lease, both parties would do would commission an appraisal, and then the purchase price would be the basically the average of those two appraisals.
Yes, but
I mean, and we wouldn't go to that point yet.
Yeah, but how can you appraise a building that you're only going to get revenue for 5 or 6 years to the tune of $360,000? The cost of the building means nothing. It's the economic value of the building that means something. Would you buy $1 million building knowing that you'll only get $360,000 worth of revenue and then the lease could be canceled?
Well, no, but I would leave the task of coming up with an appraisal to actual appraisers, and as long as they're aware of all of the circumstances, I would trust that they can do it. But I guess maybe let me rephrase this to say, instead of waiting until 2028 when the lease terminates and we have the option to get out and tell them, you know, sorry, thanks, but you're done. Instead of waiting those 6 years, what advantage would we have by trying to negotiate now? But that's the cost that I would want to have estimated. You know,
well, you'd have to know if the MADC would be willing to take a discounted value, first of all, knowing that 360 or 300 is the most they're going to get out of it. And are they willing to do it at a lesser number? In which case, I mean, this is how Gialamas and everybody builds their business, right? So our cost would be, you know, 3,000, Rich pays 6,000, and then, you know, we get a margin over the top. So we still get 36,000 into the airport commission. Excuse me, the fund. The fund. So, I mean, I think the start is to have a sit down and to talk it through. And if they say no, I mean, then I guess it's no. You wait to 2028, and then you don't renew the lease, and you take the building. It's that simple, in my opinion. If I was MADC, I would probably grant the building to the airport, knowing that I've already been paid an onerous amount over what the market would have been if I would have made a loan, just like I did every other customer. It looks like they're taking advantage of the city.
So what is the action then, John, that you would like Luke and me to take to council?
I would like you to get the motion on the table, and I think we should set up a discussion, right, with the MADC about early acquisition, or possibly even gifting it. Maybe they'd be interested in that. And I mean, it certainly would be good for the community, and that's why MADC is there. But and they could say no. And if the result of that conversation is fruitless, then I think you just wait till 2028.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think it does. And if Brian and Mark can put something together, I don't know if today's Thursday, so this can't be on next week's agenda, and it might not even be capable to do it in September because we have the budget going on. But Luke and I will coordinate with Mark and Brian and you, John, to bring this before the council, because yeah, it should have been discussed sometime in 2020.
Okay. So that's that item. Is there any more questions about that one?
I can assure you that they will not be gifting, but it doesn't hurt to ask one more time.
Yeah. Well, the purpose.
There's no harm in asking.
Yeah, I mean, the whole purpose for them to be engaged was to help the airport. It didn't turn out that way. It was to help themselves. And so, I don't know. I have a strong feeling about that, but we'll let that go. I felt like we kind of bait and switched. It should have been a loan, and then it become a lease. And there's no other leases like that. But if you got a 25-year guarantee and you got a guaranteed renter, I'll take that day and night. I'll buy all those I can get. So, all right, let's move on to the next item. So we talked about projects, and these are very rough numbers. And we need to pick something, I think, and to kind of flesh it out into a real proper timeline, if you will. So we put together 3 options and a variant on one of the first option. All of the options start out the same way. And that is the engineering for the additional fuel tank, and then the estimated cost of actually installing it. Not that we would or we wouldn't. Today was an email, and we'll get it out to you all, that the FAA approved GAMI G100UL for all internal combustion spark engines and also all airframes. To me, that takes the first two items off the table. It's going to take a year to get a tank in a year, you'll be able to get distribution. The new fuel, GAMI 100UL, is fungible. That means it can be mixed with 100 low lead. And why is that important? Because if you're in one airport that only has GAMI 100UL, you fly to another airport that only has 100 low lead, you need to be able to put both fuels together. So we can add this fuel on top of the fuel that we buy and blend it ourselves. We can make a full switch over. I think a lot of that's to be determined. So in my opinion, the first two items we might want to take off. We can come back to them in a second. The LUZO is what we recommended to the city. That's an estimated cost. And that was to help fund the land use zoning ordinance, if that goes forward. So now we're down into the more mandatory stuff. 1A and 1B. 1A is a rehab of the existing taxiway and runway. And a rehab is they just grind up the asphalt pavement and they don't do anything below it. And down below it has a 10-year lifespan. To reconstruct actually builds a new runway. It takes off all of the asphalt. It redoes all of the base. We would fix the culvert that goes underneath the runway. So it has a 20-year lifespan. So between, and I'll get to the money in a second. So down the total cost between the two projects, with all of the other pieces that we added, for $4,275,000, $5,175,000. Very rough estimates. We have available through our AIP and bill about $2 million. That leaves what the balances are shown here: $2,275,000, $3,175,000. We would have to petition for and likely pay 5%. We have not had a problem petitioning and getting projects approved. Our match amount at 5% would be $113,000 for one and $158,000 for the other. So for basically $45,000, you get an extra 10 years of life expectancy. So to me, option 1B is a no-brainer. Option 2, we talked about when the motions were made to the airport, to the Common Council, we recommended revisiting or extending the runway to its maximum length, keeping the runway protection zone and everything related to the airport on airport property. There's no zoning we need to do. There's no acquisition we need to do, none of the above. If you extended it, you would want to do it during the reconstruction, and the cost of that would be $1 million. So that brings us to $6,175,000. Again, our $2 million offset, got to find $4 million. So we have to come up with $208,000. So we know we have to do $111,000. So for less than $100,000, we can totally reconstruct the runway and extend it. Will the extension bring a new class and category of aircraft onto the field? Very doubtful. However, when there is minimum friction or a landing resistance, like in the wintertime or heavy rain or whatever, it would allow the airplanes that now land to land in a safer configuration. So that's the benefits that I see. Option 3 is I just wanted you to know how deep the hole was to do the put the hangers in. We don't have money to do only one of these. And so this is going to have to be figured out how to fund creatively. If this is something that we really want to try to get done, or the city wants to really get done. So we need to pick one of these. If you pick option 2, it automatically comes with an environmental assessment and everything associated with it. So when you change the length of a runway, it triggers a whole series of activities, even if it's only a foot. So the FAA will have to come in and do all the environmental assessments. I don't know all the things that they do, water, land. I mean, these are things that the township, Middleton Township's been asking for. And it also would do a compatibility as would be added to it. So all of that would be done. Even if you ask for option 2, you may not get it. It depends on the environmental impact. So just saying, yeah, we want it, doesn't mean, yeah, you get it. Okay. So I guess my thoughts to start out with are the first 2 items about the additional fuel tank, engineering, and installing it. I mean, knowing it's a year off and knowing that we have approved fuels, I mean, do we really want to spend $450,000 of our money? Seems like a waste to me. What are your thoughts?
I would agree.
Yeah, I agree. So I would take these off of the projects list. I would first verify with the FAA that the fuel is approved for all spark engines and all airframes. And then if that is in fact correct, and the news is correct, then I would take those 2 items off. And I would spend the money on your reconstruction of your infrastructure. Any other comments on those 2 items? David Lorman?
I agree. I agree. Not a lot really to say. I mean, the news is almost too good to be true. So forgive me for being skeptical.
Yeah, no, we have to verify it.
Yeah, but no, I agree. Yeah, well, I mean, why spend the money?
Yes. It's going to take it. Everything with the BOA takes a year. So
yeah, and it's probably going to take. It'll take that long for the fuel, the fuel manufacturers to get up to speed, and then and maybe we can Kevin or if Rich are still online, input a little bit about just the the STC process. I think bring the rest of the folks here up to speed. Because I'm just thinking out loud, so go with me on this for a moment.
Yeah.
This is great. We get the unleaded fuel, but it has to be through a supplemental type certification process. So, okay, that means Rich has to go out and get certificates for every aircraft he has.
Every aircraft.
Every aircraft he has. And we don't know what the cost of that certificate is going to be. Is it $100? Nah, okay. Is it $10,000?
I think it'll be $1,000.
Okay, $1,000. All right. So, I can't speak for Rich, and I won't. But okay, so it's a cost, and it'll have to be dealt with on those people who are willing to bear it once that fuel is available, if that's the route we go. So if we say, well, we're going to put in UL 100 at the airport as soon as it's available, then we just have to be thinking a little bit ahead in terms of the impact on the SDC process, and we know what even the cost structure will be of the
Yeah,
fuel.
we would have to have some kind of a sign-up day. Maybe have GAMI come in. Maybe we get a deal on all of them. The one thing that we don't control is what if somebody flies in for fuel and they don't have a certificate?
Correct. Yeah. Thank you.
You know, so there are ways that with things that we think, but I think if the EPA outlaws, now that they have a fuel, if the EPA and the FAA outlaw 100 low lead, then problem solved. You only have one solution. Kevin, you got your hand raised?
Good here. Okay, yeah, I think the constraining factors will be the commercialization of the fuel. The STC, those are relatively easy. I've done a lot of those, modifying aircrafts, putting bigger engines on them, air show work, and and then getting people on board and getting through the chart supplements, the airport facility directory, and posting what kind of fuels you have, and that's the easy part. It's the commercialization part with these big oil companies, switching over to this new type of fuel. So I think all the STCs will be in place, the fuel islands will be in place, and then sometime later on, you'll actually be able to get this fuel. So I think, yeah, I still think we should move forward on that. My other comment was, so as far as taking the line items off, which I'm okay with, for the cost of the fuel tank and engineering and all that, is that sort of something we should run past the Bureau of Aeronautics and just get a kind of, I know Josh was on, is he still on? Maybe he might be able to help out as far as the strategy and all of that. I don't know. So I'm just thinking, yeah, we want to do whatever's best and most strategic.
Well, this is our project list. And I think Josh will say, this is your project list.
That's exactly what Josh will say.
Is that what Josh will say?
Yeah, this is your project list.
That's your project list. So you decide what goes on it.
Yeah, but I was just saying, it doesn't matter whether it's on this. I'm talking about the tank system and all that. It doesn't matter if it's on this list or it's not, as far as us getting funding to execute the project. Does it matter?
Go ahead, Josh.
I can answer that. You guys do petition documents where you petition the state for projects. And if it's on the petition, you have 6 years from the date you petition to do that project, or you just have to re-petition. So you can petition for the world and do nothing, or try to do everything.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, has any money already been spent on the engineering? If not by us, then by BOA.
I can also answer that. I just received the proposals from consultants to do the design work, so not a dime has been spent on it.
Okay, good, thanks.
What is it? What is the numbers? Is it in line with the 50,000 we guessed at?
There are no numbers. I have to select the consultants, and then the next thing I would have to do is go to contract negotiations.
So basically, it's capabilities.
Correct. It's best quality-based selection.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that talks about those two items. What are your thoughts on reconstruction versus rehabilitation? It seems to me for the extra 10 years, you'd be foolish not to reconstruct.
Is to do an exploratory borings and some stuff to get some better information. I would rather reconstruct because it's 20 years old. And I think the other thing I would like to strongly recommend you do is do not reconstruct and extend at the same time. Reconstruct first.
Okay.
I think you're going to open up worms that you don't want to get into if you try to do both.
So they're separate projects.
Yep.
Okay, that's new to me.
No.
Yeah, I was gonna ask Josh, can you explain a little bit what the, because
Oh,
it
do I have
seems
to?
counter.
No, you do. No, you don't.
Maybe.
It just seems to me, it just seems to me while you're mobilized with all the equipment and the paving and everything else, it just, you would do it all at once.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
seems counterintuitive.
It is, but okay, here you go. Here's why you don't do them together.
Okay.
When you come in for an extension, you are going to re-verify your numbers, the forecasting numbers. You're going to do an environmental. The FAA will look at your runway at that time and tell you you are not eligible for 100 feet. You just put in all those lights and you're going to have to cut. Well, we might be able to justify not reducing it down to 75 because of the money that's been spent.
Okay.
So if you reconstruct first or rehab first, they probably will let you leave it how it is. If you try to do both at the same time,
Yep.
you will be in trouble.
So option 2 is really off the table. Option 1B, it looks to me like is where we need to focus our energy.
Unless you can do unless a benefit cost analysis could show that moving that in is so far beyond what they're willing to help pay for. But I'm going to tell you this, in my construction career in Michigan, they made them move runway lights in 50 feet at a cost of $3 million at one of the airports I worked at.
Okay.
And we told them that was dumb and they said, we don't care.
Yeah, so what Josh is talking about is when we built the runway originally, it was built to 100-foot width because that was the criteria, I guess. Now it's down to 75. And so do they make us shrink everything down to meet the current standards, which makes absolutely no sense. So
And I'm not saying that they, John, I don't want to imply that they will make you do that. I'm just saying the probability is high.
Well, you're the expert.
That's why I would tell you to separate them.
Okay. So
this is Mark. I do want to say that is new information to me too. I had always thought, and Josh, I thought it was based on maybe a conversation some time back, that it makes the most sense in terms of impact on the airport to only close the runway once. Maybe that was a conversation with Rich, but I do know that from an efficiency of economies of scale, it makes sense to do it all once. You're talking about the fact that we are in this situation because we have a runway that is wider than is typical. I think that's the distinction you're making.
Yes, and I actually talked with Mark, our programming and eligibility person, and he was the one who was like, you know what, if I was them, I would separate those two. And the other reason is because you are going to have to go through your forecasting and all that again. I mean, you might not get the runway and every document you need. You might not get that for 5 years. Yeah. Our master plan's still not 100% wrapped up. How long has that been going on?
So yeah. So that brings us back to the most logical economical decision is option 1B without any extension. And from that, we'll put together a timeline. I know the bill money has a shelf life, right?
Yes.
And so we kind of got to get moving.
Well, reconstructs would score very high for federal discretionary funding. So even if you were short,
okay,
that would score very high.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'd like to make a motion to the commission that we focus on option 1B and we develop a more detailed timeline, cost, and plan for our analysis before we pass it on to as a request to the Common Council. I assume the Common Council's still got to approve it.
Correct.
Right? So, I mean, we have to pick something and we have to work on it. And so I think option 1B is the answer. And we need to determine whether or not the additional fuel tank, we need to do a little more research on that to determine if the first two line items need to come out. Do I have a second on the motion? Is the motion clear?
I think it is, and I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. Is there any additional discussion?
I had a question as to what is the time frame that you're thinking of, John, for the reconstruction?
Josh will have to provide that.
I think I've looked at this before and I thought it was it 25 or 26?
Yeah, I knew it's out there a ways.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, your taxiway is actually a smidge worse than the runway in theory.
Yes, but this encompasses both of them, right? Doing both the taxiway and the runway?
I think the FAA will give you one or the other. Not that you can't do them back to back, but I don't know that they would do all of it at once.
No, so the money that we allocated here is for both projects, even though we only can do one at a time.
I could redo that. I can look at the estimates and give you better ones.
Yeah, I think that's what we need to do. We need to deep dive the option and put it over time and what the cost is and how much money is available for us and where we're going to have to go supplement. So I guess that's the motion, to focus on this, do a deep dive into it, and then bring us back together and then discuss it. So I have a first and a second. Any additional discussion? All in favor of option 1B for further discussion, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, so we're gonna, Josh will deep dive 1B. And let's include both the taxiway and the runway. It builds some kind of a cogent plan because we have to do both.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually, when I get estimates, I'm gonna send them to you separate. You can take them however you will.
Got it. I'll do the best I can. Okay. So that was my last item. Does anybody have any other items that you think you would like to have on the next airport commission meeting? If not, you can always email me just like Michelle did, and we'll put it, it'll get on there. So you don't have to make up your mind right now. I'd like to make a motion and to adjourn. Anybody
second?
Lisa seconds. Any discussion on adjournment? All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 The airport commission is officially adjourned for September.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Thank you,
Feel
John.
better.